The night was still, the kind of stillness that wraps around a small town when everyone's already gone to bed. Ethan Hayes sat at the worn kitchen table of his modest home, a steaming cup of coffee between his hands. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, but sleep was a luxury he hadn't known for years. A single father, Ethan's days were consumed with long shifts at the construction yard and nights tending to his 8-year-old daughter, Mia. She was asleep now, tucked under blankets in the next room, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 2. She was his reason, his anchor. But tonight, a gnawing unease pressed at him. Bills stacked on the counter, a foreclosure notice he tried not to look at, and the haunting absence of his late wife, gone in an accident 3 years prior. His life was survival, no more, no less. Then, the sound. A screeching roar split the silence, followed by a violent crash that rattled the glass panes in his kitchen window. Tires squealed, metal screamed. Then, silence again, heavier this time, broken only by the faint hiss of leaking fuel. Ethan shot to his feet, his instincts flared. He grabbed his jacket, slipped on his boots, and dashed outside into the cool night air. The streetlights flickered down the road, and there, just beyond the curve, a mangled luxury car crumpled against an oak tree. Smoke curled into the air. Sparks flickered. Without thinking, Ethan sprinted toward it. Through the shattered glass, he saw her. A woman, unconscious, her head slumped against the airbag. Blood traced down her temple. Her expensive clothes were torn, but the glint of diamonds on her wrist caught in the flames. The acrid stench of gasoline burned his throat. He coughed, squinting through the smoke. The driver's side was crushed, the door jammed. Flames licked up the hood, threatening to spread. He yanked at the handle. Nothing. His knuckles scraped against twisted metal. Gritting his teeth, he braced himself and kicked hard. Once. Twice. The frame groaned, but held. Inside, the woman stirred, a weak groan escaping her lips. Her eyes fluttered open. "Help!" That single word ignited something in Ethan. With a guttural yell, he threw his weight against the door. This time, the hinge buckled. The door cracked open enough for him to wedge his arms inside. "Come on, lady, stay with me," he shouted, pulling her toward him. She cried out in pain, but he didn't stop. Adrenaline roared through him as he dragged her free of the wreckage. They stumbled onto the asphalt, her weight heavy in his arms. Behind them, the car hissed, then erupted in a violent fireball that lit up the night. Heat seared the back of his neck as he shielded her body with his own. The force of it knocked him to the ground. His ears rang. His chest heaved. The woman coughed, gasping for breath, gripping his shirt with surprising strength. And then, through the chaos, her first words cut through him like ice. "Don't let them find me." Ethan froze, staring down at her battered face. Who was she running from? And what kind of world had just crashed into his quiet life? The night no longer felt still. It felt like the beginning of a storm. The flashing red and blue lights came quickly, sirens slicing through the night. Ethan had called emergency services the moment he'd pulled her free. But when the ambulance arrived, the woman's grip on his arm tightened. "No hospital," she rasped, her voice raw. Ethan frowned. "Are you crazy? You need—" Her eyes, sharp despite the pain, locked onto his. "Please, if they find me there, I'm dead." Before he could protest further, she collapsed unconscious. The EMTs loaded her onto a stretcher, but she stirred just enough to whisper his name. Ethan stiffened. How did she know his name? He stood frozen on the roadside, smoke rising behind him as the wreckage burned to ash. His daughter was home alone, and now this stranger, bleeding, terrified, had pulled him into something far larger than himself. The next morning, Ethan's world tilted even further. Mia padded into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, there's a lady in the living room." Ethan's heart lurched. He rushed in to find her, the woman from the crash, sitting awkwardly on his couch, wrapped in one of Mia's blankets. She looked pale, but her eyes were steady now, scanning the room like someone who trusted nothing. "I told the medics to bring me here," she said quietly. "I didn't have anywhere else to go." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You had no right—" She cut him off. "Please, just a day. I'll be gone." Mia peeked around Ethan's legs, curious. Who is she, Daddy? The woman's gaze softened at the sight of the little girl. Something unspoken flickered across her expression. Longing, maybe. Regret. My name is Clara, she said gently. Clara. Ethan filed it away, though he already suspected more. There was a weight to her presence, a polish beneath the blood and dirt. She wasn't just anyone. And then it clicked. The news, the magazines, the whispers of power. Clara Holloway, the elusive CEO of Holloway Enterprises, a woman with more enemies than friends. What was a billionaire doing in his small town, nearly killed in a crash? As Mia wandered back to her cereal, Ethan leaned closer, his voice sharp. Why are you here? And what did you mean last night? Don't let them find me. Clara's lips trembled, but she held his gaze. Because the people who want me dead don't care who they hurt to get to me. Ethan's stomach dropped. He thought of Mia, his home, his fragile little world. And in that moment, one truth became clear. This wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of danger he couldn't yet imagine. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, staring out at the quiet street, every sound magnified. His mind raced with questions. Clara was asleep in the guest room, though sleep was generous. She tossed restlessly, murmuring in her dreams. Ethan's hand brushed over an old photograph on the table. Him and his younger brother Michael, in army uniforms. Michael's smile wide, Ethan's arm slung around him. Michael hadn't come home the same. Nightmares had consumed him. Paranoia shadowed his days. And then one night, he disappeared. No note. No goodbye. Just gone. Ethan had spent years blaming himself. If he'd been there, if he'd fought harder, maybe. The creak of a floorboard snapped him from his thoughts. Clara stood in the doorway, wrapped in a blanket. Her face looked softer now, stripped of the CEO armor. You're a soldier, she said quietly, noticing the photo. Was, Ethan corrected. Her eyes lingered on the picture. You lost someone, Ethan bristled. You don't know anything about it. Clara's voice dipped lower, almost guilty. More than you think. People like me, we sit in glass towers and pretend the world below doesn't burn. But men like your brother? They're the ones who paid the price for our silence. Ethan studied her, suspicion gnawing at him. Why do I feel like you know something you're not telling me? Clara didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward the window, where shadows stretched long across the street. Because sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it paints a target on your back. Ethan's fist clenched. Whoever she was, whatever she carried, it was now in his house. And it was only a matter of time before the storm broke. Morning broke gray and heavy, rain misting against the windows of Ethan's modest home. Clara sat at the table, cradling a mug of coffee Mia had proudly poured for her. Despite her bruises, her posture was straight, her eyes sharp again, the mask of power slipping back into place. But Ethan wasn't fooled. Beneath the calm exterior, he saw it, the tension in her jaw, the way her gaze darted to the window every few seconds. She was watching for something, or someone. After dropping Mia at school, Ethan's unease only deepened. On his way back, he noticed it. A sleek black sedan parked just down the street from his house. Tinted windows, engine off, too polished for this neighborhood. He slowed his truck, eyes narrowing. The driver, a man in a dark suit, flicked his gaze up just long enough to make eye contact. No smile, no wave, just cold acknowledgement. Ethan's gut tightened. He'd seen that look before. In combat zones. Men who weren't neighbors or passers-by. Men on assignment. Back home, Clara was waiting near the door, as if she'd felt it too. They've found me, haven't they? She whispered. Ethan crossed his arms. Who are they? Her silence was answer enough. That night, after putting Mia to bed, Ethan confronted Clara again. This ends now. You're leaving tomorrow. I won't drag my daughter into whatever storm you're running from. Clara's voice broke, but only slightly. If I leave, they'll follow. And when they do, the first person they'll use to get to me is her. The words cut deep. Ethan's jaw clenched. Outside, headlights flashed once from the end of the street. The black car still waited. The storm was no longer coming. It was here. It happened just past midnight. Ethan woke to the sound of breaking glass. In an instant, his soldier instincts surged. He grabbed the baseball bat he kept by the bed and rushed down the hall. Clara appeared too, barefoot, her eyes wide but alert. Mia's frightened cry echoed from her room. "Daddy!" The sound fueled him. He shoved Clara behind him and stormed toward the living room. Two men in dark clothing had already slipped inside, their flashlights cutting through the shadows. Their movements were practiced, efficient, not burglars, professionals. "Stay here," Ethan hissed to Clara. One of the men spotted him. "Target confirmed," the intruder barked into a radio. Ethan lunged. The bat connected with a sickening crack against the man's shoulder, sending the radio clattering to the floor. The second man swung, grazing Ethan's jaw. Pain flared, but adrenaline drowned it out. Clara screamed as the first intruder reached for her. But before he could grab her, Ethan slammed him against the wall, his forearm digging into the man's throat. "You picked the wrong house," Ethan growled, before driving his fist into the man's face. The second assailant scrambled for his weapon, a gun. Ethan reacted on instinct, kicking the man's wrist just as the shot went off. The bullet buried itself in the wall inches from Mia's room. Her scream pierced through the chaos. That sound gave Ethan a strength he hadn't felt in years. He knocked the gun loose, tackled the man to the ground, and pinned him with the bat pressed against his throat. Clara grabbed Mia from her room, clutching the terrified girl close. The intruders, beaten and bloodied, scrambled for the broken window, retreating into the night. The black car roared to life outside, tires screeching as it sped away. Ethan locked the door with shaking hands, his chest heaving. Sweat trickled down his back. Mia sobbed into his chest when he finally reached her. "Daddy, what's happening?" Ethan looked over her head at Clara. She stood pale, shaken, her arms wrapped protectively around the girl. "This ends now," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "You tell me the truth, all of it, or the next time they come, we won't be so lucky." Clara's lips trembled. She lowered her gaze, her voice a whisper. "It wasn't an accident," she said. "That crash, it was a hit. And you weren't supposed to save me." The words hung in the air, heavy and cold. Ethan stared at her, fury burning behind his eyes. "A hit? You mean someone tried to kill you? And you brought them straight to my daughter's door?" Clara flinched, guilt flickering across her face. But then her chin lifted, the steel of a CEO shining through. "Do you think I wanted this? I didn't choose to crash here, but after you pulled me out, I realized you were the only person I could trust." "Trust?" Ethan barked. "You don't even know me." Her eyes softened. "But I do. I knew your name because I've read about you, Ethan. You saved men in combat, dragged them out of burning wreckage just like you did for me. You disappeared after the military, built a quiet life here. You don't bend, you don't sell out. That's why I came here instead of a hospital." Ethan's chest heaved, torn between anger and disbelief. "You still haven't told me who wants you dead." Clara hesitated, then spoke. "My board, my company. Halloway Enterprises isn't just a tech empire. It's a battlefield. I uncovered something, corruption, embezzlement tied to people in power. I was going to expose them. They decided it would be easier if I didn't survive that drive home." The pieces clicked into place, and a chill ran through Ethan. This wasn't random. It was orchestrated. "And now," Clara added, her voice breaking, "because you saved me, they'll come for you too." Ethan's jaw tightened. His world, already fragile, was now tangled in hers. Mia peeked from the hallway, clutching her rabbit. "Daddy, are we safe?" Ethan's throat tightened. He crouched, pulling her close. "I'll keep you safe, I promise." But as he glanced out the window at the empty street where shadows stretched long, Ethan knew promises weren't enough. The war had just come home. 2 days later, Ethan's quiet town no longer felt like home. Every corner seemed to hold eyes watching him. Every sound outside the house felt like a threat. He had doubled the locks, added bars, even slept in shifts to keep Mia safe. But paranoia wasn't safety. and deep down he knew it. That night the threat came back. The black sedan wasn't parked this time. It came tearing down the street, headlights off, until it screeched to a stop outside Ethan's home. Doors flew open. 4 men in suits, guns drawn. Ethan didn't hesitate. "Mia! Basement now!" he barked. She clutched Clara's hand as they darted toward the hidden hatch he had carved years ago for storms, never imagining it would be used for this. He grabbed the shotgun from his closet, the weapon heavy but steady in his hands. His military instincts roared back, sharp and cold. The men kicked down the door. Chaos erupted. Gunfire shattered picture frames, splintered wood. Ethan fired back, each shot deliberate, forcing them to scatter. Adrenaline blurred fear into focus. This wasn't just survival, this was war. One intruder lunged close, tackling Ethan to the ground. They wrestled, fists flying, until Ethan slammed the man's head against the floor, knocking him out cold. Smoke began to curl through the house. Fire. One of the attackers had set it ablaze. "Mia!" Ethan roared, coughing as flames spread. Fast, he raced for the basement hatch, yanking it open. Clara and Mia huddled below, eyes wide with terror. "We're getting out," he growled. Clara nodded, gripping Mia. But as they crawled toward the back exit, Ethan's worst fear unfolded. Another man blocking the way, gun raised, aimed straight at his daughter. Time slowed. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, bang! The man dropped, his gun clattering. Behind him stood Clara, her hands shaking around the pistol she had grabbed from the fallen intruder. Smoke curled around her, her face fierce, protective. For the first time, Ethan saw not the CEO, not the burden, but a mother's fire. They escaped into the night, coughing, covered in ash, as sirens wailed in the distance. But Ethan knew this wasn't over. The board wouldn't stop until Clara was gone, and maybe until he was too. The police came. Questions followed, but answers? None. The men had vanished into the night, their bodies gone before sirens even arrived. No fingerprints, no ID. Ghosts. At the station, Ethan paced while Clara gave her statement. Mia slept on a bench, her small body curled against a blanket. Hours later, a detective entered with a grim look. "Mr. Cole, there's something you should see." On the table lay a file. Inside, surveillance photos. Ethan froze. They weren't of Clara. They were of him. Every routine, every grocery run, every walk with Mia. Months of his life documented. "What the hell is this?" Ethan demanded. The detective's eyes were hard. "Someone's been watching you long before that crash. Whoever is behind this, they wanted leverage." Ethan's blood ran cold. All this time, he thought Clara had dragged him into her war. But the truth cut deeper. He was already part of it. When he stormed back into the waiting room, Clara looked up, reading the fury in his face. "You knew," he spat. "This wasn't chance. That night, that crash, you weren't just running. You used me." Clara's lips trembled. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't know they'd gone this far. You put my daughter in their crosshairs." Ethan's voice cracked with rage. Tears welled in her eyes. For the first time, the iron-willed CEO looked breakable. "Ethan, listen. Yes, I kept things from you. Yes, I should have been honest. But those men, they don't stop. They destroy everything in their way. And the only reason you and Mia are alive right now is because you're stronger than they expected. Stronger than even I expected." Silence. The kind that felt like betrayal and truth woven together. Finally, Ethan turned away, his chest heaving. He wanted to hate her. He wanted her gone. But Mia stirred in her sleep, whispering softly, "Daddy, is she staying?" And Ethan realized hate wasn't simple anymore. Not when the lines between victim and enemy blurred. Not when survival bound them tighter than trust ever could. Dawn broke with weary light. The smoke of last night's fire still lingered in the air, the house now nothing but charred ruins. Ethan stood outside the wreckage, Mia's hand in his, Clara beside them. He had a choice. He could walk away, cut ties, shield Mia, rebuild what little peace they had left, or he could step deeper into the storm, risking everything to confront the truth behind Clara's enemies. Clara spoke softly, her voice raw. I never thanked you for pulling me from that car, for standing between me and death again and again. Ethan's jaw tightened. Don't thank me yet, because this doesn't end until they're gone. And if I'm in it, Mia's in it too. Clara looked at him then, her eyes shimmering with both guilt and something else. Something human, fragile. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe fate didn't put me in your path to be saved. Maybe it put me there so I could finally learn what it means to fight for something real. The wind stirred. The ruins smoked. Ethan crouched, looking into Mia's tired eyes. No matter what happens, I'll keep you safe. That's my promise. She squeezed his hand. I know, Daddy. He rose, looking at Clara. But if we're going to do this, no more secrets. You tell me everything. Clara nodded, resolve hardening. Then we fight together. The camera of life pulled back. A soldier, a CEO, and a little girl, standing against forces far greater than themselves. Bound not by trust alone, but by survival, sacrifice, and the fragile thread of hope. And as the dawn broke fully, Ethan's words lingered like a vow. To Mia, to Clara, to himself. Sometimes saving someone isn't the end of the story, it's just the beginning.